Okay,
Okay,
we're nice.
I think for this one, I don't think we did this in any of the other ones, but I think she wants us to say like our name at the beginning and then start like answering the questions. So,
Okay.
um, which I guess that was on all the instructions and I never realized it, but anyways, okay, so I'll start. So it's Mackenzie, Gerard.
Nancy Page.
And Denny Burton.
Sweet. Okay, so the first question is which of these readings do you side with more and why? Um, well, for me, obviously, it was Julie Beck's reading. I think we can all agree on that. I did see like some valid points in the other one. Like, I feel like, especially um, like in the world that we live in now, it's all about like women power and things should be equal. And but I still totally think that God gave us different roles for a reason. And sometimes it's hard and you know not always fun or popular, but if you have faith, then you just do it. So
Yeah, I thought you bring up a good point. And the funny thing about like the other article is that I feel like few, and I may be mistaken, but I feel like few of the things that they mentioned are actually in conflict with what Sister Beck said, just seen
Mhm.
in a different light. It's very like absolutes in the other one. So like, oh, it has to be almost as if it's like a classic case of taking things to an extreme when we all understood that that's the case, right? So like the first point here is just a good example of it. Fathers as well as mothers, men as well as women are called to nurture. Like Sister Beck knows that. Like, that's in the proclamation. Like their mothers are the primary nurturers. It doesn't exclude fathers in their roles. And that's the point they make. But I don't think Sister Beck was saying that either, right? She was just pointing out kind of the ideal of and the sacred nature of motherhood. And then, so I thought that was pretty interesting. They do have a lot of good points in the other one too, right?
Mhm.
But yeah.
awesome.
Right. I do agree with that. I just we are made differently. As females, we are more nurturing. Does not mean that men are not nurturing. That we just created that way. And you guys are more, men are more of a protector. And sometimes circumstances puts us so that we can be protectors and men can be the nurturing part. But I think that, we are made in a different way for a reason.
Yeah, for sure.
I totally agree. And I think there's kind of a, I don't know, maybe a movement in the world right now. Actually, maybe it's been around a long time. Maybe I'm just noticing it more the more that I look around and the older I get. But that the world seems to devalue a lot of the things that are um, inherently part of like our an identity as like a daughter of God, as far as like childbearing and like homemaking and things like that. They sometimes get a really negative um, connotation, almost as if it's like trapping or keeping someone in a certain boundaries. And I just feel like if you understand it, kind of like Sister Beck says about like what we know, like mothers who know, if you understand things through a gospel perspective, it's enabling and it's filled with respect and honor for the calling of motherhood. Whereas the world, I think, if I was Satan, I'd want to disparage that as much as possible, because, like, yeah, I don't know, the influence a mother can have over a righteous generation is greater than probably any other influence, right? And so I imagine he would want to discourage that.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so moving on, what did you think was the tone and focus of the What Women Know article? Did you see any of the philosophies of men mingled with doctrine? If so, why? I don't know. For me, I didn't really see like a huge tone. I think it was just more on I don't know how to describe it other than like women power. But you know, and not, I guess, not playing up the role so much as a mother. But that's kind of what I picked up on it.
Yeah, I'd have to say that I agree with that. That's probably just the overall tone. Especially the introduction paragraphs, the two there, right? Like that it conflicts with our inspiration and experience, and that like we know this to be true. Again, lots of these principles are true, but I guess maybe seen a little bit out of context, or maybe I'm seeing them out of context from what they really were intending. But it seems like a lot of these are true principles, just not the ideal, right? There are some good things in here, but it's interesting.
Yeah. And I definitely think a lot of them were totally taken out of context. Like if you go back and read Sister Beck's talk, like she states a lot of these things that these women are like professing to be against. Like the whole thing with men, like where was it? It says in here somewhere. I don't know, that men, where does it say? Men are fathers, sons. Many of them also struggle within a system that equates leadership with hierarchy, and like we distrust separate but equal. And so I think, like she points out, obviously we're equal, like we're as a team, we're not, you know, they're not higher than we are. And I think a lot of the tone is too, is that they talk about how they almost kind of feel like oppressed a little bit. You know, like from her talk, it makes it seem like motherhood or being a woman is looked down upon in the church, when in reality it's really not. You know, it's a super divine calling. And so I don't know, I just thought that was interesting.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to get Jessie. Just called me, and she's trying to get into the call.
I think you can.
Yeah. Can you? Okay. Bye. You're welcome. Bye.
Oh, did she get the link?
Yeah, like it wasn't working for her for some reason, and I'm so sorry. I tried to mute it, so I didn't. Okay. Yes, she's right there.
Hey.
Hey, sorry about that, guys.
That's okay. I think we are done. Did anybody have anything else to add to that question?
No.
Thank you, Millie.
Okay. Well, then we're just moving on. If there were a document titled "What God Knows About Women and Mothers," which of the two articles you read will most closely resemble that?
I feel like that's a pretty easy answer.
Right? Yeah, mothers know for sure.
The kind of woman or mother or both that Sister Beck describes in her article is a very diligent disciple of Jesus Christ. Like I'm really impressed with a lot of these things. They may seem small, right? Like most of it is even like, what's the word for it? It like happens. It's more of an attitude than necessarily some like outward like, here's what I'm doing, but like this is what these mothers want, or this is what these mothers feel when they attend sacrament meeting, or any of those things, right? And that's a pretty dedicated disciple that she's describing, and that's the ideal. And so, yeah, I think that's a pretty easy answer to award that one to Sister Beck's.
Yeah, for sure.
And just to add to that, I feel like one of the things that she pointed out about honoring the sacred ordinance and covenants, and I thought that was because mothers are very influential on what they do, And if they do follow, and they are committed to their covenants and that and the ordinance they do, I mean, the kids know when their parents go to the temple, like they see them do it, and even, I've seen parents alternating kids, like one would go first because sometimes they don't have babysitters. So we had a couple where they would take us there and they would go first and then we go after and we babysit, and I bet that their kid will see how much sacrifice that was. It wasn't easy, definitely. And so I think it's just the best way to honor is to actually do it.
Mhm. I agree. Okay, let's see. So the next one is, what do you know a woman's role to be in our Father's plan? So with that one again, I think like all of the points that Sister Beck talks about are totally all in the plan. I think the proclamation does a really good job at talking about what the women's role is, and kind of breaking that down. And so that was mine.
It's amazing how much the proclamation says in such a small amount of time. I remember like when I was younger looking at it and being like, that's a lot of words to read, right? But really, I mean, if you take one of my papers that's that long, no way. Like it doesn't say that much. Like they're really good at making it super concise about here's this and that. And they cover a lot of things, right? They cover everything from citizens defending it and the government officials to the role of mothers to like Heavenly Father's plan, all in this piece of paper. And it really does do a great job of saying here's what the role of mothers are. And again, sometimes those roles change depending on circumstances, right? So sometimes due to disability or things like that, you have to change, for instance, who's the breadwinner in a family. But that being said, those attributes that it describes that belong to mothers are really special and I think really important.
Yeah.
And then also fill in any Christ-like attribute, right? You could open Preach My Gospel to that whole section, and that all is something that each Latter-day Saint, women and men, are both trying to develop.
I like that the proclamation to work is very inclusive of almost every situation. You can almost put yourself in a different situation where you can actually gain knowledge of it. And it really does talk a lot of what the roles, and one of the most important things that it mentioned also is the role of the gender roles and how that's important. And I think like he says, like we exchange roles at times because of our circumstances. I mean, I would tell you that I never thought that my role would change. After my husband was diagnosed with cancer, I would never thought I would be, in the role that I am now. And I can see, and I'm so glad that I can relate to the proclamation because he talks to everybody specifically.
Yeah. I just wanted to add, like, I think Heavenly Father, He created a plan with a role for each of us for a reason. It's, a mother to be, nurturely, like I said, caring, loving, and being the one that holds the home and stuff, and for a father to be like the breadwinner, and it's like there's a reason for that, and I don't think that Heavenly Father, is ever wrong with anything that he has a what's that one word I'm trying to look for? Sorry. I can't remember the word that I'm looking for. But, there's a reason for everything, for his plan for everybody, for the roles that he has for the family, and it's what helps strengthen the family and helps build the family. And mm, we're very blessed to be a part of a Heavenly Father's plan. And you know I really like these articles that we read. I mean, I didn't like the second one so much, but I did like the one by Sister Beck.
We agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just being honest.
Perfect. Okay. Let's see. So how might a man's understanding and conviction of a woman's role dramatically impact the eternal well-being of children, families, and women? Well, I think like it just kind of all goes back to being a partnership, and if he understands his purpose and his role in the family, I think that's going to help the well-being of the whole family. If the mom is putting in her part and doing what she needs to do, and the man doesn't is not understanding or is not letting her do that role, it's not going to help the family. Obviously there are equal partnerships in raising children and running the house. And I think sometimes, you look at situations where men are way overpowering or, don't allow the women or don't allow their wife to be an equal partnership. And I think that's where you see a lot of contention and stuff in the home. But if you just, like the talk says, or like the family proclamation says, if you each understand your own roles, you can work together so much more effectively than if you try and fight each other all the time on it. So.
Yeah. And on that same point, I think there is a difference between nurturing and housekeeping, right? I mean, housekeeping is definitely a part of nurturing, right? But it's not the same thing. And so hopefully, like my plan anyways, when I get to that point, is to realize that in many ways, the nurturing is important enough that if there are ways that I can help out with that, then I should take advantage of that. So for instance, it doesn't take too much effort to like wash the dishes or whatever. And yet it can actually go a long ways, even if it's a really small thing. Go a long ways and allows then it would allow my future wife to then spend that much more time with the more important part of nurturing, I guess, than just like sometimes the daily menial, like day-to-day stuff. I think that'd be important.
I think that I was kind of able to understand the different roles when we flipped roles.
Close my door.
Because there was a time that I didn't work and my husband provided the whole time, and I would do dishes and all the stuff and the house stuff. And now that the roles are changed, that then you realize that just doing simple things like saying thank you or like really working together makes a big difference, because it's very stressful to be a provider, but it's also stressful to be a home stay mom. You know what I mean? It's very stressful because, like, I think the ladies that come to the clinic and they come very stressed out about their children, and there's sometimes their parents don't understand how much work it requires to take care of kids. And it's like I always tell them, my job, I can go home and I don't have to deal with my job anymore. Like, you can't go anywhere. You're at your job 24/7. Like, there's a lot of drama and there's a lot of emotional, mental stuff that you're dealing every day. But at the same time, like when the man goes to work, it's a lot of responsibility because you're taking care of, everybody relies on you. So it's very stressful. And I think that it's very important to like be equal and understand each other. And I think that at the same time, it's kind of important to help each other out, because you're not going to be the best person to be in your role at times. So having that loving, encouraging way to say you can do this or whatever, is very important.
Right.
I really like that,
And I-
Nancy. That was really good.
Yeah, and it's just basically this takes us back to the question before, with our roles and everything. We have each our own roles, and yes, we understand what our roles are, but sometimes roles flip. Sometimes the woman has to be the breadwinner, and that's when the man. I think this is where kind of like the question rolls to saying how he needs to understand and stuff. It can't go always the same way, and it's just as long as the husband and the wife can come to an agreement that things happen this way, and there's nothing you can really do about it. And like, just for example, in my case, I was married, and a while back, and he lost his job, and I was basically like the breadwinner, and so he didn't really like that, and he was like always really negative about it. And make him understand, like, that it's not always up to him, that it's okay that things happen this way. But I guess he wasn't really understandable, and like I told him, pray about it, and I don't know, it's just things got really complicated and downhill from there. But I just really think that when roles do flip, that both of you can come to an understanding, because things can really go downhill from there. And also including the children, they need to understand as well, like the roles in the family. It's just it's how it is sometimes.
Yeah, good point. Okay, so the last question is, the Savior has said that in the last days, even the very elect shall be deceived. How can we avoid being deceived by the world's philosophies of men and women's roles?
Good idea on this one. I think there's a direct split between those who follow the counsel of the apostles, prophets, and general auxiliaries, and those who do not. And that is almost exactly it. Like, there are a lot of people who will claim to, for instance, like, and I don't want to hate on this second article, but like to say that it's in conflict with our inspiration and experience and what we know to be true. You can't have it both ways. You can't have a testimony of the apostles and prophets and the inspiration that God calls the people he calls and inspires them with the words that he says, and say it's in conflict with what we believe is true. Like, you can't have it both ways. And people are trying to do that a lot recently, at least in my friend's circle. They won't agree with something, and they'll be very against what the leaders of the church and say that they don't know what they're doing and stuff like that, and yet still go to church and still believe it. And you can't have it both ways. And I think in these last days, the way to not be deceived is, if you really have a testimony that these people are speaking for God, is to follow those people and not deter away from them. You have a testimony of a lot of other things, but if you don't have a testimony of the apostles and prophets as servants of God, right, and saying what God wants, then that's pretty thin ice, I feel like, as far as being deceived goes, because they're so clear, right? They're so clear about this is what it is. And if it really is from God, like if you have a testimony of that, it's pretty easy to then turn around and say, okay, then I just need to do that, right? And you won't be deceived if you follow those leaders.
Yeah. It kind of makes me think, like, wow, maybe 2-3 years ago, there was a sister who was fighting about being able to be in the priesthood.
There's probably been a few of them, but yeah.
Yeah, like, but the most recent one, like, a lot of people follow, and it's just like, wow, like, do you really understand your role? I mean, I feel like sometimes we go to church, but sometimes we don't really understand the principles that they teach us. And having a testimony of the prophet is so important, because if we don't, it doesn't matter how much we study. It doesn't matter how much we read our scriptures. The Lord talks through our prophets, and if we don't, I mean, we have modern kind of like scriptures now, because our times are different. And the Lord wants to reveal new things to us. And if we're not willing to do it, or we're not willing to listen, it's going to be very hard. It's going to be super hard to really follow.
A lot of people would look at that and say that then we're just kind of sheep or just following, like the leader kind of thing. But it's different. If it's just a really good leader and you put all of your faith in that person, it's a lot different than having a testimony that they really are an apostle or prophet, right? Because you're right, Dad. So that means that they speak for God, and that's the revelation we need. And so someone who has enough dedication and commitment and has received this confirmation that this person is called from God and is determined enough to follow all of those decisions, no matter how hard they may be, doesn't sound very sheep-like to me, right? That's someone who is pretty determined. And I think that is what we can be too, because I really think that is a dividing line, is those who follow the guidance of the apostles and prophets and those who don't. So yeah, just to have, I don't feel like it's brainwashed or sheep, like just one of the herd at all. If you have that like firm commitment that this is what, it's kind of like Joshua in the Bible is like, for me and my house will serve the Lord. That's not a sheep. That's bold, right? That's something going against the tide, if anything, right?
Yeah.
So,
Right.
And I like how they always tell us to pray about it. They don't just say, oh, follow me because I know better. They encourage you to pray about it. And some of us that lack of knowledge and that's what we have, like the connection of having that prayer and having the testimony through the Spirit.
Yeah, for sure. I think one thing that kind of ties all of that in is if you're seeking out the wrong sort of spirit or like material, you're gonna get an answer, and it's not gonna be, how do I word this? It's not gonna be of like from the Savior. Or from the Spirit. It's gonna be from Satan. And I think I've had a lot of people that have decided, oh, hey, I got this answer and I did all my research on this and whatever, and it was clear as day, and I'm thinking, okay, well, are you crazy? Like, clearly that wasn't the Spirit, because if it was, you wouldn't have gotten that answer. Like Satan has his little ways of digging in and trying to get us to feel certain ways. And so I absolutely think that if we stay true to the faith and we're doing things that we're supposed to do and not searching out for the evils, that we could, because there's lots of things in the church that I think, oh my gosh, that's crazy. Like I could do so much research on that and claim that it's not true, or that, whoever said it wasn't a good leader or whatever. But the second that I go out from what I believe and try and investigate those things, I'll get a feeling or I'll get answers, but it's not going to be the right one. And so I think that's just one thing for me to remember, is to not even go down that road, not even, have the idea of wanting to look for something else in the world's view, because I'm going to get it. It's just not going to be the right thing. So I hope that makes sense. All right. Well, that was all the questions. I don't know if anyone else has.
For next week assignment, I think she said that we can do like partners, or we can do it as a group. I'm not really sure.
The instructions say, because I just went over that again, just now actually, before this meeting. But the group, or the instructions say that they divide us into partners to do it. But then she sent out an email to everyone that said we can just do it in our same groups, and I think that would probably work the best.
To do it in our same group.
Just do it in the same group, same time even. It's due on Thursday at midnight, so same time as all these things are. And I think it's one of our last assignments of the class, right? And so,
Yeah. It's due on Thursday?
Yeah. And so we could probably just meet same time Thursday at 7, just like we normally do, and then have that complete. Because I think it's actually, I don't know if it's worth more points, but it seems like it's one of the last like big assignments, right?
Yeah.
There's you watch the movie, you write the paper.
And then we answer the question, and the questions are how we do the peer evaluation thing.
Yes, right. And then we have the discussion, and then there's the peer evaluation. And that maybe, I mean, the only other assignment due for this class is the course conclusion self-assessment one after that. So it seems like it's the last big assignment,
Yeah.
unless I'm missing something.
No.
No, I think that's it.
So I was just going to say, if it works for you guys, we could do the same, like 7 o'clock Thursday, and then that should be the conclusion of the class almost, right? Because then we just do the other stuff on our own.
Yeah.
It's been a good discussion, guys. I've really enjoyed there's some of these like online discussions are hit and miss, but I actually really enjoy our group. So
Yeah, it has been great. And it's nice that we all come from a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we've almost got like all corners of North America here. Hey? Like,
Girl.
That's awesome. Okay, well, I would stop the broadcast